Good day to you, students. Welcome to your lesson on business correspondence and reporting as part of your CA Foundation exams. आज का हमारा टॉपिक है रिपोर्ट राइटिंग। अगर आपको याद होगा कि पिछले लेसन्स में हमने रिपोर्ट्स क्या होती हैं, कैसे लिखी जाती हैं, कैसे स्ट्रक्चर की जाती है, ये समझा था। फिर हमने कुछ सैंपल रिपोर्ट्स को लेकर उन्हें ब्रेक डाउन करके उन्हें एनालाइज किया था। आज के लेसन में हम आपके पास्ट पेपर्स में से कुछ क्वेश्चंस लेकर उन्हें सॉल्व करेंगे और आपके आईसीएआई के मॉडल आंसर्स के साथ उन्हें कंपेयर करेंगे। We solve the questions by ourselves first, wherein I give you a skeletal structure as to how you should answer this, and then we will compare that to the model answers that are available on the ICAI student portal. Let's get started. So the first question we're working on today is from your exam in July 2021, question 9C, which carried a weightage of 5 marks. Now, it's not just 5 marks here, you see, it's 5% of the total score of your paper. ये क्वेश्चंस अगर आप एस कर लेते हो तो 5% तो आपकी जेब में है. Let's look at the question. Draft a newspaper report on the government's decision to open multiplexes after almost a year to be published in a national newspaper. So obviously ये तो क्लियर हो गया कि ये न्यूज़पेपर रिपोर्ट है या फिर मैगजीन रिपोर्ट है, तो you're allowed some semblance of informality. Also worth noting कि ये करंट अफेयर्स के ऊपर रिपोर्ट है. इट्स एन ऑनगोइंग इशू, द कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक एंड द रिजल्टिंग लॉकडाउन्स. तो आपको कुछ एस्पेक्ट्स में एक्टिव वॉइस यूज करने की परमिशन है. So the structure of your report would look something like this, as you see on the screen. You have the title, you have the introduction, where you introduce, you give a bit of background about the topic, you introduce this new move by the government. Then you have the public response to this. You talk about any future issues that might arise from such a move, and then you have the conclusion. अब इसका skeletal structure हम देखेंगे. The title self explanatory. टाइटल के साथ आपको इंक्लूड करना है ऑथर का नाम और आर्टिकल की डेट, क्योंकि न्यूज़पेपर रिपोर्ट है उतना तो डालना पड़ता है. इंट्रोडक्शन में, एज आई सेड, you give a bit of background. This pandemic has been around since early 2020. It's been a year and a half, and the government is now slowly making the decision to open public spaces up again. And in light of this, they're also making a decision to open up cinemas and theaters for people. Then you talk about the public response. Now, public response from various groups such as moviegoers, movie buffs, or if there is an association of theater owners in the country, then their response to this. And as an add-on, you can also talk about this kind of small businesses that crop up around movie theaters, either to sell snacks or to sell merchandise or whatever. Then you talk about future issues that can arise from a move like this. So you talk about the risks of such a move. You talk about what precautions are being taken to mitigate that risk, as in any COVID protocols that will be followed and any special facilities that will be provided, so on and so forth. And then the closing state. So here you can see this is the model solution from the ICAI student portal website. You see the title, Government's Decision to Open Multiplexes After Almost a Year by Mr. So-and-so, staff correspondent. You have the date, and it says that the state government has allowed single screen and multiplexes to open at 50% occupancy if they strictly adhere to the COVID safety protocols. The cinema theaters get ready for bustling activity after almost a year of dry run. Cinema operators who've been out of business welcome the decision. Small businesses around the cinema, in the vicinity of the cinema, have also welcomed this decision. ये हो गया आपका इंट्रोडक्टरी पैराग्राफ. फिर आता है पब्लिक रिस्पॉन्स डिटेल में. Mr. XYZ, president of the Cinema Operators Association, congratulated the government. He assured that all protocols with regard to COVID would strictly be followed. This is a reassurance from the theater owners. What sort of protocols? To get their staff vaccinated, public convenience is fumigated, like actual movie halls, the canteens, the washrooms to be regularly fumigated to prevent the spread of COVID through surfaces, thermal screening and sanitizing to be available at all entry and exit points. Then in the next paragraph, avid cinema buffs are equally excited to see their favorite stars on the big screen. They're also seeking relaxation in the night curfew so that late night shows can be allowed. This is something they expect the government to do. They hope that the government will do. The popular multiplex chain in the city has offered 5 to 10% discount for the audience who have taken both their doses. Again, safety protocols, incentivizing COVID safety. And then you have the concluding statement, which says that with the third wave of COVID-19 still looming, how long this euphoria will last, only time will tell. So you bring the entire article together, but issue a mild warning that we need to look into the future, that this threat is still looming large. So this is your ideal structure for such a newspaper report. Clear so far? Let's move on. This exam question comes from your paper of December 2021. Again, question 9C, 5 marks. 5% of your score. Remember that. You are a student of Mothers Global Institute. Your institute celebrated your annual day on the 30th of November 2021. Write a report to be included in your school's or your institute's annual magazine. Magazine report, informal report. We know this from the question. Structure would look something like this. You obviously have a title. You have an introduction where you talk about what the program is. You have a chronology of events. A chronology is a list of the individual events ordered by time. Then you have the award function if there was one, and then the conclusion of the ceremony. So the title, as I said, self-explanatory. In the introduction, you need to include factors like the date of the program, the venue. The venue is important because the program might have happened on campus, or if they didn't have enough space, it might have happened in a chartered auditorium off campus. Then a lot of these programs have certain themes to them that the rest of the performances will follow. So you talk about what theme it followed. And then if there was a chief guest or chief guests, you talk about who they are, why they are prominent, and so on and so forth. Then you have the chronology, the individual events listed in order of occurrence. जैसे जैसे वो इवेंट्स हुए हैं उनको उसी ऑर्डर में लिस्ट करना है. We'll come back to this in a moment. Then you have the award function. Your awards might be something like best performance, best student, best class, and so on and so forth. And then you have a conclusion. अब ऐसे इवेंट्स में जब कंक्लूजन की बात होती है, so there's usually a vote of thanks delivered by the principal or the director of the institute and so on. So you can add a few statements about that. Now, when I talked about the chronology of events, let's look at what an ideal chronology looks like. So I've listed 5 events here in total. The first event, the opening event, is the chief guest giving a speech and lighting up the lamp. And the principal talks about the theme of the program and opens the program in some sense. Then you have a welcoming performance given by a mixed group of classes or children from various age groups. Then you have these group performances by the different classes that the institution has. Then you might have individual thematic performances by the students, either by groups of students or by pairs of students or a single act by a single student, or so on and so forth. And then in the end, you have a break for snacks when the judges will discuss the awards that have to be given out, if applicable. So now let's look at the model answer provided by the ICAI. You see, annual day celebrations, a gala event. There you have your title. Our beloved alma mater celebrated its 20th annual day on the November 30th, 2021, the school auditorium, and so on and so forth. 1,000 guests comprising of students, parents, and alumni. The chief guest, Municipal Councillor Shri XYZ, lit the ceremonial lamp with director of the institute, Dr. ABC. So you know who the chief guest is, you know why they've been invited. Followed by the Saraswati Vandan rendered by the middle school choir. There goes your opening performance. The chief guest addressed the audience, motivating them to concentrate on holistic personality development. He congratulated the school and authorities for delivering excellent results despite the onslaught of the pandemic, and a little bit of rambling about what the chief guest talked about. It was then time for a cultural extravaganza. This is where all the events of the program, the chronological events, come in. The theme was unity in diversity. The junior school students highlighted their dancing skills. Junior school students from grade 2 to grade 4 highlighted their dancing skills. The middle school choir enthralled the audience with their renditions of popular patriotic numbers. And the audience was swaying to the foot tapping music and a thunderous applause. And this was the audience's reaction to the performance. A thematic play was presented by the senior school students that showcased the cultural and civilizational ethos of our nation. So, this is ostensibly the last program per se within the function. The chief guest then gave away prizes to meritorious students, competition winners, and house captains, and so on and so forth. And then the principal delivered a vote of thanks, which comes under your conclusion if you remember. And the guests were ushered to the school grounds where refreshments were served. It was a fun day well spent amid entertainment, giggles, and laughter. And you conclude the article with that. Everything clear so far? Very nice. Let's move on. So यहाँ आप देख सकते हैं I have prepared a sort of a sample question for you. This is your homework. This is a practice question that I've developed for you. Should you like to practice what you've learned in these past lessons? Write a report about an investigation regarding plantation workers going on strike. This report is to be presented to the CEO of the organization. So now we know it's a formal report because it stays within the organization and it is being presented to a higher authority. So you would structure it in this way. You have the title page, but obvious. You have the executive summary. You have the introduction, chronology of events, findings, recommendations, and in the end, chapter on conclusion. So, in the introduction, you would give some background of what this issue is. You want to talk about where it happened and what time it happened and so on. In the chronology of events, you go into a bit more detail that it happened on so and so date at so and so time through a formal declaration. And these were the events that followed the declaration of the strike, whether the people just left and went home or whether they organized a protest march of sorts. That's open for you to decide. Findings. As a result of the investigation, you have discussed with the striking workers and you know what they want from the company. So this goes under your findings section. Recommendations. So now you know what the issue is about. You know what the striking workers want. So you prepare a list of recommendations that the company can implement in order to ease the tensions regarding the strike. Again, remember, this is a formal report. Anything you put in there has to be objective, has to be based on hard data. There is no space for your personal biases or your personal recommendations or anecdotes over here. You have to be objective. There is no room for subjectivity. After the recommendations, you have a conclusion wherein you may state something like the workers are striking for so and so reason, and if these recommendations were to be implemented, data suggests we might see a decline in the popularity of the strike, so on and so forth. Here I have a second sample question that I've prepared for you. Write a newspaper report about the recent earthquake that occurred in Turkey in February 2023. Now, this again is a newspaper report, it's a magazine report. So you have a bit more wiggle room for informal language or personal anecdotes or things like that. The structure, as you see on the screen, is the title, introduction, chronology. This is especially important when you're talking about a specific event, a chronological list. Then you talk about the aftermaths and the rescue attempts, and then you conclude the article. So the chronology can look something like the earthquake began in the morning, the first tremors were felt at so and so time, and by the time the ground stopped shaking, it was say 10:15 in the morning, and the earthquake began at 10. You might talk about the aftermath and the rescue attempts as to the when the ground stopped shaking, people looked around, they took stock of the situation. The emergency services arrived, like the fire department or paramedics or the police. They arrived, they started digging around in the rubble, trying to pull people out of it. And in the aftermath, you can say that the people of the city or the people of the country are now demanding some sort of compensation from the government. And in conclusion, you talk about what the future holds for the communities that have been destroyed, what the casualties mean to the people, and so on. And you bring together the report and end it. So here you have two questions, two practice questions for you, which will help you put 5 marks in your pocket easily. These 5 marks, this 5% out of your paper, which is a total of 100 marks, is a cakewalk for you. So practice these questions. I will include a link to a Google Drive folder in the description. Once you practice these, once you've prepared a draft, upload your drafts over there and we will help you assess them. That's all from my end. Ciao.